G'day, we're talking shock absorbers today. This is a 100 series Landcruiser and we've just changed out the factory shocks for a set of Bilstein 4900s. You can't see them, there's no lovely shock pointing through the rear mudguard on this, but they are in there, full set of Bilstein 4900s. We've fitted them. This is the first job that I've done on this vehicle that has just driven me insane. The rear suspension on this vehicle is just a bloody nightmare. So if you are changing out the shock absorbers on a 100 series Landcruiser, the front, nice and easy. There's videos online telling you how to do that. It's fairly straightforward, just undo the bolts and pull it out more or less. It's pretty simple. On the back, there's a bit more conjecture over what to do, and I can see why. It's a pain. It is an absolute pain. I found the design of this vehicle to work on, grease points, drainage points for the diff, transfer case, transmission, etc. Really good. Oil filter location, fuel filter location, all those things have been fine. But the rear shocks is just an absolute nightmare. So most people seem to come to the same conclusion. The first thing you want to do if you're changing out the rear shocks is drop the spare. Take the spare out. I'm going to give you a little bit more room in there, but not much. It's just in a diabolical position. The top of the shock, which is here, the top of your shock is hard up against the floor pan of the wagon. So you're working in bugger all space. Basically, you want to get a set of ratchet spanners. Ratchet spanners will make this job a whole lot easier. I've got a set of gear wrench ratchet spanners that are reversible and they've got an angle on them. I've also got a set of flat ratchet spanners from Jimmy Tools. The flats were useless. I needed an angle so I could get more of a turn, and the switch made it really good because I could turn it in either direction for tightening when I wanted to put the new ones back in, or loosening when you take the old ones out. So a set of ratchet spanners is really good. I've seen people do it with flex head ratchets. That would probably make it a little easier, but an angled ratchet spanner is fine. The principal reason that it's hard to get out, not just for the lack of room, is that these cars are pretty old now. This one's done 380,000 Ks. I can't find a reference that these have ever been replaced, and they were shot. They were well and truly done. Even if they were replaced halfway through their life, it means that these have done circa 200,000 Ks. And that's a good amount of work in the life of a shock absorber. In any event, they weren't coping with the dirt roads that we go up and down every day, so they had to come out. So they did. This is the rear shock. So this is up against the floor of the wagon at the back, sits about there. There's not much room in between it. But when you go to undo the nut's almost certainly going to be seized, and this is this whole top section is one piece. So what you would do with the Bilstein, if you put a 4900 Bilstein in there, there's a spot in between your lower bushing and the body of the shock absorber to put a spanner in there and hold it in place and then tighten or loosen it up. That's just a nice, simple fix. This has been designed to not come out easily, basically. So you've got people who recommend drilling holes in the rear floor and then coming at it from the top down. You can do that if you want to. I didn't want to drill a hole in the bottom of my Landcruiser, and I've seen enough photos online of people who have drilled a hole, oh, that's not the right spot, drilled a hole, oh, that's not the right spot, drilled a hole, oh, there it is there, and now you've got 3 holes in your rear floor pan. Don't really want to do that. So I was determined to get it out from underneath. I've seen people try and get it in there with a set of vice grips. We did try that. That wouldn't get it out. Tried to getting heat up here. There's pretty much no room, and there's a lot of other stuff in there you don't want to hit with the oxy. So that was problematic. How we ended up getting it out was actually pretty simple, and I wish that we'd just done that in the bloody first place. You've got jack your car up, take your wheel off, and then this will become exposed in the back, and you'll see it like that. Now what we did was, I was underneath the vehicle with my ratchet spanner trying to break it, and then I had someone else out here, and then they had a pair of Stilsons or a pipe wrench, adjustable pipe wrench, if you don't know what Stilsons are. And you can see there's teeth marks on here. So just put the Stilsons on the body of the shock, because this top section, where the thread is where the nut goes, and this steel body of the shock, it's all one piece. That all turns together. So I put a set of Stilsons on there, and he held it against me, and then I cracked it from the top. Now, we did get it to crack, and then we were able to undo it, but it took a lot of strain even there, holding that there so that it wouldn't move. And I can tell you, I was absolutely heaving underneath there to try and get that blasted nut to crack. And we did get it to crack. We did get them out, thank goodness, and we were able to do it without drilling holes in the floor. Now, considering drilling holes in the floor is going to potentially give you a few extra holes in your floor pan that you don't want, notwithstanding you can put grommets in them. But if you put a set of Bilsteins in there, and you may not, but if you did put a set of Bilsteins in there, you're not going to need to use that hole in the floor pan again, because you're just going to stick a spanner in there, crack it, away you go. It's going to be a lot easier. But with the factory shock, admittedly, was a lot harder, but we did get them out. And I got to say, we did the hard side first, which is the exhaust side. We did do the hard side first, but the second, doing this side, the other side of the car, the left-hand side of the car, was a lot easier once we figured to just put a set of Stilsons on it and crack it. Put the set of Stilsons on it, span it, really give it some pull, crack, right, let's get it out. Once we ascertained that was the way to attack it, it was actually pretty simple. So Bilsteins are in there. That's an absolute nightmare of a design, Toyota. You've done a pretty good job in every other respect, but lest anyone call me a Toyota fanboy, that's a crap design, absolute crap design. Why you couldn't put a fitting on there? These, as I said, these are shocks, to my mind, that have been designed that they will last forever and never come out. They're not going to last forever. You are going to have to change them out at some point, and it's ridiculous that there's not an easier way to do it, notwithstanding a set of Stilsons on the shock absorber body did make it a lot easier. And maybe that's how they always intended them to come out, because this is a full one-piece steel section, whereas with the Bilsteins, this is rubber. So we've got the Bilsteins in there. I've just recently put Bilstein 5100s in my Ram, and I bought the 4900s as well. The reason I went with the Bilstein is I had a look at the Australian manufacturers. I looked at, well, resellers, that is, like Old Man Emu and Top Dog, Iron Man, Monroe, all that sort of stuff. And I couldn't really decide which way to go. Some of the plus and minuses, they're pretty expensive. Entry price for any of those, about $750. And then I was getting some parts for my Ram out of the US, and I quoted a set of Bilsteins for this, and I was able to get them for $550 landed, so I was going to save $200. Now, Bilstein, I know, are a good shock, and doing lots of reading online, found that, people were very happy with the quality in a 100 series Landcruiser, but they did say that the Bilsteins were a lot stiffer than factory. And one of the things I really like about the 100 series Landcruiser is it's very plush ride. It's not a sports car, has a lot of body lean, but it's a very nice, very plush ride. So it'll be interesting to see how this rides now with 4 Bilsteins in it, whether it's stiffened it up and taken that lovely plush ride out of it. But I can tell you, with these shocks here, we drive down about 10 kilometers of dirt every day to get into town. That's if we go into town, on the farm. The days we have to do it, that road at the moment, after a long, hot, dry summer, or in drought, it's just diabolically bad, just ruts. You can't talk to anybody else in the car. It's just rattle, bang, bang, bang. Incredibly uncomfortable. These shocks just aren't up to task of mitigating those bumps out. So had to change the shocks out. Have changed the shocks out. I'll be interested to see how the Bilsteins go, how they cope with the ruts, but also on the hard stuff, on the blacktop. Is it going to ruin my ride? Hopefully not. But we're going to jump into it now. We're going to take it for a run. My first drive in it. We'll see how the shocks hold up, see how they perform, and how they've performed with the old stuffed, crappy design Toyota shocks. So come along for a ride. We'll see how these go. Okay, so we got our first run with the new Bilstein 4900s in the shocks. We're heading out my driveway, and then I'm out for a bit of long way of dirt as we head into town. So, look, the shocks in this were pretty disappointing. They were worn out and they were extraordinarily loud. I don't know how much noise is going to come through on these new shock absorbers, I don't know, but they were very loud. The amount of reverberation and noise, you know, NVH coming into the cabin was really, really bad. They have got, you know, better, I hope, with the new 4900s in here. So going out, there's a lot of corrugations on the road. This is better than what it used to be. You can probably hear that vibration coming through. That's better than it used to be. Still not great. Actually, that's a bit disappointing. I thought that would have taken a lot of that out. Surprising that it hasn't. It feels better. I will say that across those corrugations, and there'll be more of those to come. It does feel better than it did. But so these are lighter. There they are. Yeah. So the noise is surprising. It's surprisingly loud in here still. I'm surprised at that. I thought the shocks would take a lot of that out. The feel, the heavier corrugations I can feel on the steering wheel. The lighter ones it's passing over without any drama at all. There's some light ones here I can hardly even feel it or hear it actually. So that's a lot better than what it was. But I thought it would have been better. I thought it would have almost eliminated that entirely. My Hilux, for example, hardly makes a sound, and is even probably a little smoother than this, to be honest. So it hasn't made as quite an impact as what I thought. It's better here though. This is you know, more potholes, not real regular corrugations. So here's this pretty crook road surface here. That's a lot better than what it used to be. But those corrugations have still got that bad vibration. See, my Hilux doesn't do that. I thought it would have taken them out. Admittedly, I am running on springs. I did not change the springs. So the springs have done 380,000 K. So the springs might need some replacement to get the full benefit of the Bilstein 4900s. In fact, if you speak to a lot of people, even suspension people will tell you that, you know, it's pretty much a fool's errand to think you're going to get the full dramatic impacts of changing your shock absorbers over if you aren't willing to change your springs over, especially if they're, you know, fairly old springs. But there is an improvement here. Now the interesting thing will be, and we'll get on to bitumen in a minute, the interesting thing will be as to how this has changed the dynamics of the car on bitumen. I was very reluctant to change over the shocks. I found previously that this thing was just magical. It was a magic carpet ride, soft and plush on bitumen. And a lot of the comments I read, and I can feel a little bit of this now as I go into some of these corners, they said the Bilstein 4900s will really firm up your ride. Here we are again. My old shocks really would wallow in these corners. They really, and I was concerned I was going to lose some of my plush rides. So it'll be interesting to see how we go. This is a very windy road that we have here that goes into town. This is a bad stretch of road. There's a lot of ruts and potholes down the centre of on the right-hand wheel track of the car. But this is quite a distinct difference to what it used to be. This is actually a fair bit nicer. I don't like the noise of the corrugations, as I've said, but this is a fair bit better. Yeah, here we go. I'll drop my wheels deliberately in here. See, that's a lot better than what it was. They wouldn't rebound. The car would bodong. You'd really hear it when it hit those corrugations. All right, here we come up to the bitumen. So that's a lot better than what it was. Corrugations is disappointing though. Okay, so this is on bitumen. Now we've got a few good sweeping corners here. It still has a lurch. It still wants to have a fair degree of body roll. Is it as bad as what it used to be? instinct says no, but we've got a few more bends here to see how we go. Now, this is a fairly tight one up here. We're going to have to back off a bit more. Brakes. Like, this is a big car, high center of gravity. That does feel a lot more planted, a lot more sure into the corner than what it did. I drive this road, you know, if I go to town, I go to town most days, not all days. This is the road I take, so I'm very accustomed to it. Some days I go up and down this road, you know, many, many times. So that does feel better than it used to feel, for sure. It's not uncomfortable on bitumen. I thought it was really going to take that plush soft ride out of this car, and that's why I was very concerned about going to the Bilsteins. A lot of people say you're going to lose your soft ride. The Bilsteins are a lot firmer. There's still a fair bit of roll in it. I thought it might have, you know, gone to a typical sports type tune for a Bilstein. It hasn't done that. There's still plenty of roll, but that would be, you know, probably expected with a high center of gravity, high weight car to get body roll into corners. I thought it might have overcompensated and made it really stiff as a board. It hasn't done that. It's given it a little bit of a tune, but so much so that I'm really concentrating here to try and be perceptive of the change that it has made. I don't think you'd notice. If you came into this car cold, I don't think you would have thought that the car had a sporty or a stiff suspension tune. I think you'd largely be ignorant of any change that has been made here. It is a little stiffer, but not anything like I was expecting. It's a compromise. It's stiffened it to a little bit of an extent, but to me it doesn't feel anything more than I would expect putting a brand new set of factory shocks in here. If you put brand new shocks over worn out shocks, it's going to feel stiffer. That's just the way it's going to be. But in this particular car, I don't think you would drive this thinking that you've got anything other than an OEM tune in it, really. It's disappointing to a degree. I thought that maybe I'd give up some of my plush ride for a firmer roll that was going to improve the handling. It has, but not by much. Not by much. In fact, I'd go so far, like these were about $550, putting a set of four 4900 Bilsteins. Now, I did need to fit the shocks. The shocks did need to be fitted because one of them was leaking oil. So it's going in for a roadworthy, and that does need to be changed. Get under there. It does need a new set of shocks underneath it. So that is what it is. But if I wasn't leaking oil, if I'd put these in just thinking, oh, I think the shocks are a bit worn, I'll change them over. For $550 spent, and even if that's fairly cost effective, I reckon I'd be pretty disappointed with the performance of these shock absorbers, to tell you the truth. I don't think they're that much of a pronounced difference. Certainly not $550 worth of difference, I don't think. Now that's a fairly cost-effective set of 4 shocks, but for what it is, I don't think it's made a great deal of difference. So yeah, I'm surprised. I'm actually genuinely surprised. I thought the 4900s would make a more pronounced difference than they have, but they have not. So take that as you will. For the money, if you've got to buy a new set of shocks, hey, you may as well get a set of Bilstein 4900s. I don't think you'll do much better if you can get them for $550 landed at your door. But yeah, I'm a little underwhelmed, I must say. I did think they'd be stronger. So look, if you're out in the market for a set of shocks, cost-wise and quality-wise, I would have said they're an absolute steal. They've kind of left me wanting a little bit. I kind of want to try another set of shocks and see if they were better. Look, they're fine. I'm going to run with them. We'll see how they last. But I'm a little underwhelmed, I must admit.